Hi, I'm Renee. I'm a compulsive overeater. I weigh and measure my food off the gray sheet. I commit those meals to my sponsor. I don't eat no matter what. Abstinence is the most important thing in my life today, and through the grace of God, I'm abstinent. And I just celebrated 35 years. My abstinent date is 12/27/1986. So, and I was so excited because before COVID, you only get to announce your abstinent date at a couple of meetings that you happen to be out. But with COVID, I got to announce my anniversary date at least 5 to 6 times or 7 or 8 times a week. And to me, it was just so exciting. I never thought when I came in I would have 35 years. I think when I came in, I just wanted to get a day together and then get 90 days together, then maybe a year. Then I was looking forward to getting 5 years. And after that, I was just like I was always a day at a time. But in terms of milestones, I mean, I think after the fifth year, I just didn't really think about, oh, I need to stay till I'm like 80. I really just stayed in the day. The 5 years was more about, they say in AA, you get your brains back after 5 years. And I kind of wanted to know what it was like to have a brain, because I don't think I had one before I came in. I was really spiritually, mentally, and physically broken when I came in. I was anorexic. I wasn't in the hospital yet, but I was about to be put in the hospital by my parents. I was probably considered suicidal, or I was by my family anyway. I got abstinent when I was 21. I was still in college. I actually got abstinent in between my senior semesters. And right before I think I was about to drop out of a really prestigious school, a very difficult program that I was actually doing well in. God knows how I did that. My reaction to stress was to bake, binge, throw up, and then exercise, in that order. And, I was really sick and suffering. I didn't really know how to have a relationship. I took hostages, not friends. I always felt on the outside looking in. I was like the hole in the donut for sure. I just, I didn't know where to put myself. I didn't know how to be. I was constantly worried about my outsides. I didn't know about my insides. I didn't know what I liked or disliked. I grew up in a house where it was very important to do the in thing. And if your friends were playing tennis, you should go play tennis. And if you were doing this, it wasn't about, you really like this, let me encourage this and help you get better at whatever it was. I wasn't very low life. I was a chubby kid. I was made fun of. My parents used to force me to call people to make play dates because they didn't want me alone. I wanted to sit and curl up with a book. I was never taught to do what my insides wanted me to do, you know. But more importantly, I don't think I never felt heard. I didn't feel loved. Food was my best friend. It was my ally. It was everything to me. I was a latchkey kid. My brother and my sister were not. My sister had 3 years more than I do in this program. It's how I found out about Grey Sheet. And I watched her get abstinent for 3 years before I was willing to come. And I kind of knew I would end up here. There was something inside of me that knew that, I was just like her, and I was the only one in my family that supported her and stuck up for her. My family was not easy. They were not necessarily supporting throughout, I would say, a good 30 of my years of my abstinence. If anything, if I didn't feel well, it's about what you're eating. If they saw me eat a lot of salt, I eat too much salt. That's bad for me. That's bad for me. I actually once went to an endocrinologist and he told me I was the healthiest person. My bloods were totally fine. I made him write a handwritten note on a prescription pad to my parents saying, your daughter is fine. Her salt is in control. Leave her alone. And, if I was having fights with my husband, it was about my food. If my kids were picky eaters, it was about my food. It was always, everything is because of my food. And, first and foremost, nothing was because of my food. nothing, absolutely nothing. I just resisted that. I didn't quite listen. I talked to people about it. It was kind of irrational, totally coming from my father who controlled food, and my mother ate when nobody else was looking. So, I was a sneak eater. My sister and I baked in the middle of the night all the time, because they couldn't stop us in the middle of the night once we got started. And um, I couldn't, I just had to be thin. I visually, physically remember crossing the line where the cucumber turns into the pickle and there's no going back. I became deathly afraid of gaining weight. Somewhere, I think in college and early on, and I lost weight. People said I look great. If I lost a few more pounds, people said I look great. Mind you, I wasn't overweight in college at all. And I kept on thinking that if I lost another pound, people keep on commenting that I look really good now. So I couldn't believe them. Like, I had to keep on losing weight. I thought, well, if I lost more weight, they would continue to tell me I look great. And I just, the gig was up. I I could talk more about my eating, but I think more importantly, I think I need to talk about my growth and getting abstinent. It- you know, Getting here, I learned working the steps taught me how I affected others. It never occurred. It was always like, why are they persecuting me? Why, when I got abstinent, if I woke up in the middle of the night for a drink, my mother would wander into the kitchen, just checking on me to make sure I wasn't taking food. It was weird. They didn't support me, but they were like scared if I moved around the house because that was the old patterns, right? My sister wouldn't let me in her apartment anymore by the time I got abstinent because I would go there and binge. We both lived in the city at the time. And my brother said that when I called him, they were afraid I was going to kill myself every single time. They were afraid to talk to me. My parents were about to check me into a hospital. And I didn't think I had a problem. I didn't know how to pay bills. I had boyfriends that were not available for me. I I just literally, I think my friends knew, but they didn't really say anything for me. But if we went out for the Frozen and walked back to campus, one of the girls would say to me, I know you have to leave us and go to the bathroom to throw up now. I mean, she finally called me on it. I used to throw up in a garbage can in my room. I had crumbs all over the place. I just couldn't control anything. And then when I got abstinent, I was a senior in college. And some of my friends were a little put off that I wasn't going to drink anymore, that maybe I wasn't going to go to some parties. I went to a lot of AA meetings. There was only a couple of GreySheet meetings a week. There was only like 12 people in New York that had solid abstinence. And I thought they had eons, but the majority of them had 1 or 2 years. And I had thought that they had like 10 years, like that's what it was like back then. And they were tough. They were referred to as the Nazis of OA. And then Cambridge was like the motherland, you know. Because my sister was in program, I actually had to call someone long distance every day. And back then, long distance calling was not cheap. At one point, I lost a bunch of weight. I had to get extra food. My parents had to up my allowance so I could buy the extra food. I ate the biggest and the best. My raws were absolutely huge. I seriously don't know how I downed all that food in a meal at this point. Aging and abstinence is a whole nother ballgame. I can't eat huge fruit. I eat big fruit, but I can't eat the huge fruit. So when we go to the store, my husband and my babysitter have to weigh apples for me to make sure they're above a certain weight and below another weight. And I make them do it. That's it. I'm not going to eat an 8-ounce apple for breakfast. That's it, But I can't eat a 13-ounce one either now. I get a sugar high. And, so I have to say that I've been through a lot in all my years of abstinence. I cried my first 5 years. Just to give you a highlight of the beginning for the people counting days, did everything they told me to do. If somebody told me to stand on my head for 5 hours and then eat a meal, I would have done that. I drove hours when I wasn't in the city. I worked all day. I drove an
5 minutes.
hour and a half to New York and then went to a meeting and then drove another hour home. And then I had dinner in Dallas, if anyone. I did that for a really long time. And I I have to tell you that the most important thing to know is not to eat no matter what. All I heard in meetings was positive pictures on gray sheet abstinence. Do not eat no matter what. I heard this happened in my life. I'm not going to eat. And if something happened to you, more than likely someone else, it happened to first. And I called them and I asked for help. I was on the phone all the time. I slept and ate and went to meetings my first 90 days. The summer after I graduated, I didn't work. I just focused on my abstinence. I was supposed to be looking for a job, but really I was getting abstinent. And, and I have to say, I'm really grateful for that. I showed up for whatever responsibilities I had, but in between that, I put people on the shelf. I didn't do things without a trapdoor. And by that, I didn't go to parties without having my own car. If I was uncomfortable, I left. I blew off Thanksgiving one year. My family was furious. I was hysterical. And I remember that they make a turkey with alcohol. I can't eat it. I have to bring all my own food. They eat at 4 o'clock, which is definitely not a meal time for any of us most of the time. And I was miserable. So why go? So I skipped it one year. That didn't go over well, but I did it. And, you know, I, I just have to say, if you knew we're coming around, no matter what's going on, keep coming back. Don't quit before the miracle. My life has 100% changed to if you told me, oh, and the other thing was when you first get abstinent, I think a lot of women think about how am I going to have that big, huge carbohydrate in my wedding? And I couldn't have a relationship with a girl, let alone get married to a guy at the time. So here I am thinking about a wedding. It was so irrational, you know? And when I got married, the first thing I said to the caterer is, we're not having that ceremony. We could maybe take a picture on the side if someone has to have that picture in the album, which I still never put together. And I said, I'm not making a commotion over this. I said, all I want to do is dance throughout my whole wedding. The band was not allowed to take a complete break. They had to alternate. And I danced the whole entire time. And that was the wedding I wanted. I didn't want it to be around the food. And I got married. I took over my father's business. I went from not being able to have relationships with my family to seeing my parents every day. My mother still comes to work at 85, which, mentally is a little bit of an issue sometimes. And I became very close with my family. I was incredibly close with my sister. She passed away in abstinence. It was very difficult for me. She was a pillar of the community. People put her like on a pedestal, and it was like an earth-shattering thing that went through the community. And she was my soulmate. She truly understood me. All I had to say was 2 words to her, and she was right there with me. And it was very painful. I've lost family. I've lost parents. I recently came down with my multiple myeloma. I had a bone marrow transplant in July. I've been hospitalized. I'm totally isolated now until I'm fully vaccinated because I don't have chickenpox. I don't have shingles. I don't have any vaccinations anymore because of the transplant. And, I got through it. I got through it abstinently. I got a backup sponsor in case my sponsor wasn't available. I always called the same person to help me because he was familiar with my food plan and my sponsor trusted him and I trusted him.
1 minute.
And I feel like this time went really fast. And I also remember reading the promises a lot and reading how it works a lot. And in the back of my head, I have this tape going, rarely have we failed with people who have thoroughly followed our past. Those who cannot recover are people who are constitutionally incapable of being honest. And I used to walk around the city hearing that in my head, because we used to hear it at almost every AA meeting, and hearing the promises in my head. We will instinctively know how to handle situations that used to baffle us. I have children. I could honestly tell you I've made tons of mistakes with my apartment, with buying decisions, with business decisions, with whatever it was. But I got through them all abstinently. I'm human. Just because I got abstinent doesn't mean my life becomes perfect. It means I could deal with my life in between my meals. I haven't always been happy. It's taken me years. I've had moments of happiness, but if you knew me when I first got abstinent, I cried my eyes out for like 5 years. I cried. I was uncovering layers of a very painful onion, and I'm still working on it. I don't graduate. I'm still working the steps on a daily basis to the best of my ability. I saw that it was time. So I hope I said something of value to somebody. I hope everybody comes back and has an abstinent rest of the day, and everyone wakes up tomorrow and has an abstinent tomorrow. Thank you.